I do not wish to stand between the earnest reader and this remarkable piece of religious literature. Yet, weak as I am, I shall do what little I can, having been asked to do so. What follows is an impressive and instructive account, written by a young man eager in his search for Mahatmas, of his visit to and experiences with Sri Ramana Maharshi, a living saint of South India, revered as one who attained the highest goal of the Vedantic tradition and regarded as a fountainhead of spiritual strength for humanity in this age of rampant materialism. The description that follows is concise, vivid, and in my opinion needs no preface. In the Master's presence, the vibration in the body is overwhelming, the mind is elevated, and the spirit invigorated, an experience that can only be felt, never adequately expressed. His teaching is precisely what is needed in these times when lives are short, bodies weak, and spirits feeble, with attention so often drawn toward material things, apparent and temporary, instead of what is spiritual, real, and eternal. The essence of Sri Ramana Maharshi's teaching rests on a single pivot. Know thyself and you will know everything. Nothing more will remain to be known. He advocates a simple process of self-inquiry. Who am I? A pure and constant contemplation of the Atman beyond form, name, and attribute leads the seeker back to the source of all thought, the heart. There the inquirer and the inquiry merge. This merging is mukti, liberation, self-realization. And this realization is the true worship of Atman, God both within and without. The author of this attractive booklet, Mr. Frank H. Humphreys, appears to have gathered his impressions of Sri Ramana Maharshi from different sources and at different times. How he came to hear of the Maharshi, visit him, and become one of his admirers may interest the reader. Mr. Humphreys arrived in India as Assistant Superintendent of Police in January 1911. His health was so poor upon reaching Bombay that he had to be taken to the hospital there, where he remained until mid-March. He reached Vellore on the 18th of that month. When I visited him that day to begin teaching him Telugu alphabets, the first question he asked me was, "Munshi, do you know astrology?" I replied that I did not. He then asked, "Can you get me an English translation of some book on astrology?" I procured one for him from the George Union Club, Vellore. The very next morning, upon returning the book, he asked me, "Do you know any Mahatmas here?" I feigned ignorance, denying any knowledge of such great men. On the third day, however, he confronted me with a searching question. "Munshi, you said yesterday you did not know any Mahatma, but I saw your guru this morning in my sleep. He sat beside me and spoke, though I could not understand what he said, nor he what I replied. The first man I met in Bombay was you." When I asked how he could have met me in Bombay, though I had never traveled beyond Guntakal, he explained that while lying in high fever in the Bombay hospital, he sought relief by directing his mind to Vellore, and in his astral body the first man he met was me. I told him I knew nothing of astral bodies. Still, curiosity led me to test him. That afternoon I brought him a bundle of photographs of great men, including those of our Maharshi and of Ganapathy Muni. I silently placed them before him and went away. When I returned later, he pointed to the photograph of Ganapathy Sastriya and said, "There is the likeness of your guru. Is he not your preceptor?" Thus was I caught, unable to hide my devotion to my master. Ganapathy Sastriya had been my guru since 1906, when he taught me to concentrate and direct my attention toward Paramatma, Sri Ramana, whose name is ever dear to me. The instruction of Sastriya is identical to that of our Maharshi. Shortly thereafter, Mr. Humphreys, still unwell, was advised by his doctor to go to Uttakamund, which he did on April 1st, 1911. While there, he wrote to me of meeting a strange, ascetic-looking man with matted hair, bright eyes, and a long beard. No one else seemed to know this man, though he had lived there for years. Mr. Humphreys asked me who he might be. I replied that, by the description, he could be a Siddha. From Uttakamund, he wrote further letters, questions about pranayama, about vegetarianism, about mystical societies, and in each I gave him what counsel I could. Slowly, his path drew him closer to the Maharshi, and eventually he visited him at the Virupaksha cave. During his first audience with the Maharshi, he asked, "Master, will I be helpful to the world?" The Maharshi replied, "Help yourself. You will help the world." When Mr. Humphreys repeated the question, the Maharshi explained further, he was not separate from the world, nor was the world separate from him. By helping himself, he would help the whole. Then Humphreys asked, "Master, can I perform miracles as Krishna and Jesus did?" The Maharshi countered with a question, were they, at the time they performed miracles, aware that they were performing miracles? After a moment's reflection, Humphreys answered, "No, Master. They were only the instruments through which God's power worked." Thus did the Maharshi reveal that when a man is lost in God, he becomes merely an instrument in God's hands, one with God, enjoying a peace and happiness beyond the reach of joys and sorrows. Such peace cannot be described, only lived. May we all aim for this state of mind's rest and peace of heart, which the Holy Ones ever seek. A friend once wrote to me about the International Psychic Gazette. Mr. Thurston's articles are often talked of. We could do with more about India and visits to the masters. That very day I received letters from Frank, now in India. I had not seen him since his youth, but his Christian name suited him so well that I have kept it unchanged. In his words, he tells of his experiences. About 3 months earlier, he dreamt of a great man. He spoke of it to his Telugu Munshi, who brought him pictures of various figures. Frank at once picked out the man he had seen. Days later, that very man passed through Vellore on his way to a conference at Tiruvannamalai. Frank recognized him immediately, tall, strongly built, with a noble forehead and aquiline nose. They sat together in the waiting room, and Frank felt waves of new impressions, though the man hardly spoke and knew no English. Later, he learned that this was Sastriya, considered one of the greatest Sanskrit scholars of India. Within 15 days of meditating, he had miraculously mastered Tamil, a language he had never before spoken. When Frank asked how, Sastriya simply replied, "By meditation." Sastriya promised to teach Frank before retiring into seclusion for a year, and said that if he came to Tiruvannamalai, he would take him to see Sri Ramana Maharshi. On his first visit to the cave, Frank sat silently before the Maharshi. Sastriya told him to gaze directly into the Maharshi's eyes, which never shifted from deep contemplation. In time, Frank realized that this body was no man at all, but the temple of God's Spirit radiating through him. His own sensations were indescribable. At last he was permitted to speak. The Maharshi, in a few sentences of broken English and in Telugu, taught him directly and accepted him as a disciple. Most touching of all was the sight of small children who climbed the mountain alone simply to sit in the Maharshi's presence. They did not play nor speak. They only sat quietly, perfectly content. Frank returned again. The Maharshi greeted him with a smile, already knowing his hunger and thirst, and provided food and drink. He described Frank's past life to others as easily as one consults a book. He knew when Frank was still hungry, when he had had enough, when he thirsted, even before it was spoken. His smile was radiant, his kindness overwhelming. Frank left changed. He found within himself a newfound fearlessness. Once, when attacked by a savage dog, he felt no fear at all. He walked on unharmed, realizing only afterward the danger. Such was the courage born of the Master's presence. In time, Frank summarized the Maharshi's teaching, that the true Master is one who has flung his entire being into God until he is no more, and God alone acts through him. Psychic phenomena are but distractions. The real work is to fix the mind steadily upon that which sees the witness within until the world dissolves and only God remains. Attainment is not rewarded, for attainment itself is worship. Religion leads only so far until all faiths converge in the realization that God is everything and everything is God. Realization is nothing mystical, but literally seeing God in all. Sins are misguided strivings after liberty, which is only found in realizing we were never bound. Worship is surrender, to act without I or mine, to see God in every thought and deed. Such was the essence of the Maharshi's teaching. The life of the Maharshi himself is simple and profound. At 16, he experienced awakening. In 1896, he renounced family life and left for Arunachala, where he lived first in the great temple and later in caves upon the holy mountain. For 12 years he spoke not a word. Then, when addressed in verse by Ganapathy Sastriyar, he broke his silence and began to teach. Many credible witnesses tell of marvels. During a violent rainstorm, a woman saw him sitting in meditation in the open, yet when she approached him afterwards, the ground for 50 yards around him was completely dry. Sastriyar, his disciple and intellectual counterpart, testified to his greatness and often said, "It is not I, but the Maharshi who does these things." Together, the two revealed the harmony of intellect and devotion, knowledge and meditation. The Maharshi answers idle curiosity with silence or by asking, "Who is this I that wants to know? First know that I, and then all will be known." Yet to sincere seekers, he speaks with clarity and power. Such is the Maharshi, silent, radiant, and beyond description, the embodiment of gentleness, strength, and truth. To sit in his presence is to feel oneself lifted out of the ordinary into the eternal. That is the whole account, Frank's story, the reflections of his teachers, and the glimpses of the Maharshi himself. May we too turn our attention inward, asking, "Who am I?" And by finding the source of all thought in the heart, discover the same peace, the same liberation, the same eternal joy.